Hello and welcome everyone to another Cuphead tutorial video. This time I will be covering the Cuphead Legacy All Bosses route. So that is doing all the bosses and all that stuff. So I'll be covering the glitches, tricks, and the routing. So there shouldn't be any questions, but if there are, feel free to put them in the comment section and I will get to them. Yep, for now, let's get to the tutorial. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is obviously we're going to start the game, select a new save file. And hopefully before this point you will have gotten your auto splitter and all that stuff set up, which you can see in another tutorial which I will link in the description. But for now, we are going to immediately leave out of Elder Kettle's house because we do not need the tutorial coin. We are going to leave and we're going to talk to Apple Guy to get the 3 coins from him really quickly. And then we will move over towards the first running gun because you need to do that in order to get the weapons later. Alrighty, so now we're going to make our way into Forest Follies here. Forest Follies can be quite difficult before you practice it. But first we're just going to keep dashing through. Your biggest worry right now is just to worry about the dandelions and the occasional projectiles. And you shouldn't have too much of a trouble getting through. As you can see, this is what it looks like after you've had a while of practice. I will mention, though, coming up right here, that guy has a chance to randomly spawn from either side of the screen. So it is important to really see where he's going to be. Because you see here, I take it very closely and just barely avoid him. So yeah, it's important to mention that he can spawn on either side. So you have to be worried about that. So just continuing through, dashing as much as possible as it's the most speed. And now right here is the big clip. I'm going to slow it down so you guys can see. And now I save up my dash so I can dash right as I get level with the ground, and that allows me to clip in. And from here, you can just avoid the entire acorn machine and then just keep dashing all the way to the end. And that is the big clip there. It'll take you a while to practice that and get used to it, but once you do, it is a very handy skill for the level. Alright, now that we have the coins, the next thing we're going to do is going to buy the weapons. So the 2 weapons we're going to be buying is Roundabout and Lobber. And there's a trick that you can do where if you press the buy button and the exit button at the same frame, you can actually buy as you leave, and it saves quite a bit of time. Then you can also mash the inventory button while the dialogue is coming up to equip your weapons during the dialogue. Alright, so now that we have equipped both the Roundabout and Lobber, it's time to talk about the weapon swap glitch. So the weapon swap glitch is done by having, obviously, the 2 items equipped, and then hitting repeatedly the weapon swap button while holding on the fire button. You can change your controller setup to make this more comfortable for you. I will show a screenshot of my controller setup that you can use. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Alright, so the first boss we're going to be taking a look at here is the root pack. And you might think there's not much to talk about in the root pack, but there is a surprising bit. So right at the start here, you can see we fire 3 roundabouts behind us, and they come back later. And that's because, at the start, Potato actually has some invincibility to it, so you don't want to start shooting him right away. So if you can set that up, it does a bit of damage. And next, we're going to do another setup here, where we're firing straight up so the projectiles come back. And that's to prepare for Onion, who is about to spawn in just a moment here. And you can use this same skill on some other bosses, but the easiest way to see it is on Onion here. So you set up a bunch of them to come back, dash out of there real quickly as he spawns, and you can see he dies pretty quickly, not even getting off a single attack. Now, there isn't really anything for Carrot, but definitely practicing your timing for setting up that little trap on Onion is very helpful on this boss, and then you just finish it up. Nothing too difficult there, but definitely worth practicing. Alright, so the next boss we will be facing in World 1 will be Ribby and Croaks, obviously, as this is the most efficient routing. Now, there isn't much to talk about with Ribby and Croaks, but there is a small trick that you can do in Phase 1, which is if you stand in just a particular spot, I will be explaining it because I didn't get it right here, but if you stand in a particular spot, crouch down, and continually fire, you will hit both hitboxes, and you can see right about here. You can see that both Ribby and Croaks flash because I'm hitting both. It doesn't deal double damage, but it does give you twice as many cards. So you can do that if you get lucky enough with the attacks by getting flies to get a lot of cards very, very quickly. And so now the rest of the boss fight is basically just dumping more DPS in them. You can set up a bit of a trap there by having some roundabouts come back so that they hit immediately as it comes out of his invincibility. But other than that, you basically just want to take it as you normally would, just making sure not to do anything too risky. Obviously, if you do have the HP from the other phases, you can go for a bit more, like, I guess, riskier strats, but for the most part, just playing it safe and you should be fine with this boss. Alright, so now time for Goopy Legrande, another boss that really there isn't too much to talk about. There's a bit of easy stuff that you can do to help yourself throughout the run. Keeping track of his spacing helps out. I goofed up there and he jumped into me. But other than that, you just want to fire into him. Do not go for the parries as they do slow you down a bit. And the amount of DPS that you would get from an EX isn't really worth it all that much. Once he gets into this phase, firing at an angle like this, at a locked angle, makes it a lot easier to hit the Tombstone's hitbox. But other than that, really simple boss, just breeze through it, don't really need to practice him too much. Alright, now we make our way over to Hildeberg, and you want to remember to minimize your movement as much as possible on the overworld. First, we're going to click into the airplane, and immediately as you get in and so you can get control again, you want to pause and exit to map as it's faster than flying down to the bottom of the screen there. Alrighty, so now it's time for Hildeberg. There isn't much to talk about with Hilda. There's some pretty basic strats that you can do. I won't mention the more advanced ones. You can go look those up for yourself, as this is more of a beginner's guide. So first off, I'm gonna show off a damage boost that you can do if you want to, where you take the hit and then you fire an EX as she's going back. You don't have to go for this if you don't feel like you're comfortable taking the damage yet. Otherwise, you can just play the fight pretty simply. Just keep shooting her, dodging her attacks. I go for a nuke real fast here just to speed up this phase. And then, as you can see, I don't have enough for a damage boost, so I just get out of the way. And like I said, just going through all the strats. Or all the basic strats. The most important things are EX management and just, like, being aware of the projectiles coming in. Also getting any parries if you feel like it, so you can get some more missiles. And here's a good example of it. I fire off an EX right here just to make sure I don't get nuke. Because EX missiles are a lot better on this phase. I fire another one there. Especially, you want to aim just above her eyes, because they have a chance of hitting the hitbox of the UFOs because you can actually shoot those, and it does a bit more damage because of just overlapping hitboxes. But yeah, like I said, nothing too outstanding. If you want to look up the more advanced strats, I'll put a link to them in the description. Alright, now, so from Hildeberg, we make our way over to Cagney Carnation, the last boss of World 1. Again, not a particularly difficult boss out of World 1, but it can be tricky if you are not used to the attacks and such. So what you want to do is go to that first platform closest as possible, and then you want to just keep jumping and doing attacks. This boss fight is very RNG based depending on which attacks you get, so it is important to get as much practice as possible so you know what to do with all the different RNG patterns. There are so many that I will not be showing them off, because for the most part the strategy is just not getting hurt and just doing damage, and then you can quickly see here, boom, it's already done. So yeah. Not an overly difficult boss, but definitely one worth practicing to get used to the attacks. Alright, so relatively recently, we've actually discovered in the community, in particular SBDWolf, discovered that there's actually a better routing, so I'll be showing that off to you guys for World 2 here. But generally, the start is pretty similar to how we were doing it before, where we would go over to Baroness, which is going to be the next boss, then pick up bombs, and then from there, I'll show off the new routing. Alright, so the next boss we're going to do is Baroness, and similar to Root Pack way earlier at the start of the run, we're going to do a pretty simple strategy of just aiming behind with the roundabout so all the shots come back, and then taking out all the mini-bosses. I will not be showing off all the mini-bosses because generally they have the same strategy of just keeping away from them and not getting hurt, while also doing this roundabout strategy. And it's effective on basically every single one except for maybe the Cupcake because he tends to jump away from them. But that's, you can deal with that anyway because he has a small amount of health. So again, doing the roundabouts, coming back. I do take a hit here just because of bad spacing, but managed to take it out really fast. Then you want to just jump over to Baroness herself, do a couple EXs. If she does the shotgun attack before she comes out onto the castle, she will be a bit invincible into her castle phase, so be sure to take that into account when going in for your final attack. So here, showing off that new routing, we're gonna go up to grab the bombs real fast, and instead of going down to fight Ginny, we're gonna go immediately up to go fight Wally first. And so that saves time instead of having to go through the shortcut later on. Alright, so here we're gonna see our first example of plain weapon swap glitch, and you can see the small bottom left corner where he's doing his weapon swapping, and this is footage from Luigi's world record run, by the way, he's doing methodical taps of every occasional, like, couple moments. He will do 2 taps to quickly switch to bombs and then switch back to the machine gun. And so it can take some practice, but eventually when you get the hang of it, you'll see that the plane levels become significantly faster. He does a nuke immediately at the start here so that he can gain more EX cards over the course of the fight with the baby bird. So again, just playing it not too risky. He pauses right there to cause the final phase to come up faster. I don't know if there's an explanation per se for it, but other than that, you also want to do some missile EXs at the very corner of the gurney, and that will do the most damage as they fly through the boss. So now instead of using the shortcut, we're going to be traveling right back down, and we're going to go fight off the second plane level in World 2, which is Jimmy the Great. Use more footage from Luigi because I'm terrible at playing WSG. So he goes down to the bottom left here, and that's because there is a hitbox down into the middle of the actual, like, arena right now. And so he's hitting it with the bombs while also firing. And so that allows you to do damage while also playing it safe. And then he goes back because the hitbox is still there, persistent throughout the fight. He fires an EX through the middle because it does a bit more damage than standard fire because of the way that the pillars work. But you don't really have to go for that if you don't feel like it. So again, doing as much damage as possible to try to go for the glitch, which will cause the boss to get stuck in his coffin phase. And you'll know right away because it won't immediately just die. It'll instead just get stuck in this phase. And you'll also hear several audio cues of, like, transitioning phases. So once you get it, you basically just want to keep doing WSG, as also hoping that the ghosts don't spawn in awkward spots. He gets it pretty fine. You don't have to play it so up close, you can play it a bit further back, but generally it is faster if you play it up front. Alrighty, so now we're going to go back down and we're going to go fight Beppy, which will give us access to Grim after this boss fight. Alright, so the key to Beppy here is doing enough damage in his bumper car phase to get him to do the iconic Beppy freeze. And so before he does his first bump, you don't want to do more than a card and a half of damage, or else he will just go and do his transition. You want to use a couple EXs to do enough damage. And you'll know when you get the glitch when you see a bunch of smoke appear. And then I go to the bottom left here, and I fire some roundabouts. And you see I'm actually gaining EXs, because off to the left side of the screen, there is a hitbox that you can hit. And now it's basically just don't die and keep doing as much damage. The only hitbox that will actually do damage is hitting his head right now, or the one off the left-hand side of the screen, but it's generally better because you can actually do weapon swapping onto the big one in the middle. Alright, now from Beppy, we make our way back up towards Grim. And this is the end of the new routing for World 2. Everything in World 3 is already still the same. Alright, so for Grim, you generally play the boss fight pretty similarly. There is a trick that you can pull off that I will show off, but generally you don't need to worry too much about getting it or not. It will save you a couple of seconds on the transition, but for the most part, there isn't enough invincibility frames the boss has to really make it a make or break run. It just makes it a bit easier to survive. So just continue to do damage. There is a hitbox off to the top right of the screen that you can hit there, and you see I get it. And this is the freeze. This is the glitch that does make the boss fight faster, or not faster, easier, because there is no projectiles. The most you have to worry about is falling off the platforms and then doing damage. So generally it does make things easier, but it's not a make or break situation if you do not get it. So now I will show off what it looks like if you don't get it, which is generally you just play out the boss fight exactly as you would before, just doing enough damage to make it through each phase. And so again, there is that hitbox in the top right that you can shoot even as he's transitioning around. And you see I don't get it in time, but the transition is still fast enough. And if you go behind him, there's actually there's no hitbox back there. And so you can see I'm safely just hiding behind him and no worries. So those are two strategies that you can do to take on the boss. Other than that, fairly simple, don't have to worry too much about getting glitches. Alrighty, so now we are going to make our way from Grim all the way over to World 3 and then face off against Honeybottom. So you just want to dash through the die house, quickly spam through King Dice's dialogue, and then dash on over to get to the cutscene, then quickly skip through that as well. Honeybottom, there isn't really much to discuss about her. It is another RNG-based boss fight. some patterns that she will do are faster than others, but generally you will get roughly the same amount of time. You want to just quickly breeze through the security guard here, nothing to discuss. You can go for the little parry here to get a bit of an extra EX. You can set up a mild trap if you have the roundabouts going across, because no matter what, they will hit her because she's always going to be in that top row. And now you just kind of want to dump as much shots into her as possible, while also making sure to keep in mind where you are on the platforms. And now you can just, again, just doing more damage. I miss an EX right there. That makes it so that I didn't get her right before. But then you just, if you do that, you just set up a real quick trap like this. All the shots come back down and you just finish up the fight. So again, easy boss fight, though the platforms can be pretty annoying if you're not prepared. Alright, so I'm going to spend a bit of extra time explaining Cal's glitch here because it is very important to actually master. This is probably the glitch you will spend the most time practicing throughout the run. So this first time through, I'll show it at normal speed and then I'll slow it down so that I can explain it. Basically, you just want to take out each of the bits in order. The top one you want to always take out first, as it can really mess you up. Any other two, you want to get them roughly around the same time, destroying them. And then, boom. So now I will play it again, but just a bit slower so you guys can see how it is actually done. Alright, so as we get into the boss fight here, like I said, the first thing that you're going to want to do is actually take out that top little antenna, because its attack makes it so, its attack, you can't shoot through it, and it is very wide and will do a bunch of annoyances to you if you don't get rid of it. Next, you want to just move down and then just take out the other two pieces as fast as possible. I do take a bit of damage there, but that's not really an issue. Alright, so now you want to damage the heart. An easy way of telling when you're close to getting the glitch done is when the heart changes to the damaged state, and then you want to change over to the bombs. Then you want to get close, but not close enough to do damage to yourself. And then you want to do it in EX. If you time it well enough, and you are in a well enough spacing, you will actually do the glitch. If you don't, you will just end up killing him, and then just going through the phases. So definitely a glitch worth practicing over and over. Alright, so now from Cal, we just make our way over to Sally's stage play, arguably one of the easiest boss fights in this run. Just not worrying, or just having your spacing down and you'll be pretty solid. So I just aim at an angle because it helps me a bit, as well as the roundabouts just come back a bit easier. I did just like tunnel vision a bit there, and just take a hit. You can set up a mild trap for her because she will always spawn on the side of the screen that you are not on, so if you're on the left, she'll spawn on the right, and you can have the roundabouts come back and hit her. But basically just playing just dancing with her and always just kind of almost mirroring her movements. I accidentally used an EX there, but that's not too much of a worry. Set up a trap because she always comes down in that same spot. Quickly just dump through some more attacks. And again, setting up another trap right about there because that's where she spawns. You can see I kind of second-guess myself a bit, but I still get it relatively fast. So a pretty consistent boss fight, and you shouldn't have too many issues with it. Similarly to how Sally is, as we make our way over to Werner, he is a pretty simple boss as well. Again, just spacing and knowing his attacks and all that stuff to stay safe. You kind of just want to stand in a spot where you can constantly hit all of your shots. Time your parries correctly so you don't just get hurt on them. Or dash into him like a twit like I am. You can go for like a little EX right there as he's firing an attack to just sort of stay up above and keep hitting him. Because on the top row, you'll always be able to hit him even if you ease it down. And then here, you just kind of want to finish the boss fight up as quickly as possible. If you have some extra HP, you can go for a damage boost there to keep hitting him, but I didn't, so I had to dash away. But yeah, pretty simple boss fight, especially after Sally. Alright, now we make our way over towards Brineybeard, and Brineybeard is another boss in World 3, which doesn't really have too particularly much to talk about. You generally just go through pretty basic strats for him as far as surviving, which involves basically just getting occasional parries whenever Brineybeard fires his shot, and avoiding any particular attacks. I do mess up my timing there. An important thing to note is that he will only ever fire one yellow shot every time he shoots, if he fires it. Sometimes you can fire just 2 pinks and then stop shooting, but if he ever fires 4 shots, there will always be 1 pink. That is a guarantee. So now as we get into here, I immediately go and start doing the roundabout trap again, and immediately as I see that I'm able to do damage, I just go into attacking him, and then it just falls pretty quickly. So a pretty simple boss with a couple of strategies, but generally just practicing the boss fight itself, so avoiding every particular attack is probably your best bet. Alrighty, so the next boss we are going to be talking about is Calamaria, and there's not much in total to really talk about except for the blind spot that is on her beam attack, as well as general just performance throughout the boss fight. Again, you want to just be doing weapon swap with the bombs, again doing your rhythmic tapping so that you get the most out of the damage. Luigi gets the yellow fish here, and you can generally just rope it around. The red fish, you just have to dodge the attacks, which are pretty simple to avoid. He does a nuke here to do fast damage. Generally, you don't want to go for parries too much if you see them. And you see he positions himself right in a particular spot so that when she does the beam attack, it does nothing. And it's basically right in front of her face, but not close enough to get damaged. And now in the cave, you just want to really just be avoiding the spikes. You can do damage boosts through the spikes if you get bad luck, but generally you shouldn't have too much issue, especially if you can make it with 3 HP. Alright, so now from Calamaria, we probably make our way to one of people's least favorite bosses, whether you are a speedrunner or casually, which is Phantom Express. So on Phantom Express, it's got lots of little bits and tricks to it that will take some time to practice. So for on this first part, all you have to do is stand on the edge and just keep doing weapon swap. You will fire consistently enough so that you will hit the eyeballs as they bounce back up. And if you do it fast enough, you will get it before even that first ghost shows up. Then you get some free parries. I do fire the roundabout here so that I hit that ghost so that doesn't annoy me, as I just dump more stuff into the conductor. If you do it well enough, you can one-cycle him, but you probably won't without a significant amount of practice. And then here you set up a bit of a trap. It's RNG for which of the 2 brothers, I guess they're called, which one's actually fires. So you can get lucky, you can get unlucky. I got a bit lucky there by having it be the opposite one. So then for this one, you're going to want to set up kind of a version of a trap here, which is firing roundabouts at an angle. And the reason I'm doing that is because he will move over into where the shots are going, and you can see a couple of them are landing. And then you basically just want to play it as you normally would, just doing as much damage as possible, getting some well-timed EXs, and finishing off the boss fight. So yeah, pretty simple, though practice is definitely required. Alright, so now after Phantom Express, we are making our way to the last 2 bosses. First, we're going to be up against King Dice. And King Dice, there's a couple tricks throughout the run that I will explain as we get to them. So the first one we're going to be talking about is the dice trick, which involves you positioning yourself right below the dice, and as you see the number that you want, you double tap the jump button so that you do a jump and parry immediately as you hit the dice, and you should, as long as you don't have it like right on the edge of it rotating, get the number. Now for the chips here, you want to do 2 dashes, and it'll put you right in the perfect position to get under him and do some attacks, and then generally you just want to get through the boss fight. There's not much to talk about with him. So yeah, and again, we're going to be making our way back over to King Dice's table, and we'll again see the dice trick, which position ourselves right below it, see the number we want to get, which was a 3, double tap, and we get it. The next boss is going to be the dominoes, and during this domino fight, I'm going to be showing off the other trick that you will need throughout it, which is EX hover. So as you get EX, you see I use it to kind of lengthen the time of my jump so that I can get a bit further and avoid jumping into the spikes. So again, doing another one right there to lengthen my jump and making it through without any damage. So it is a very handy trick and can be useful in other boss fights such as the Grim and things like that. Alrighty, so one last time we're going to be seeing the dice trick. I'm using Luigi's footage one last time to demonstrate the monkey glitch here. So again, positioning ourselves, jumping up, getting a 3, and getting to monkey. So now I'm going to be showing it twice, one at normal speed and then one slowed down so that I can explain it a bit better. So as the monkey comes over, he parries 2 cards, transitions the screen, and it flies off. Now, for those people that blinked and missed it, here it is at slower speed. You see he parries, and make sure to get two different cards so that the monkey does its stutter. And as it's stuttering, he moves the screen over so that it moves over, and the monkey then continues on its path and flies off the screen. So it can take a bit of tries, but you want to have that screen transition. You want to have that screen transition, and then everything should be fine. It can take practice, but it's definitely worth getting, as it saves a lot of time. And now we are on our way to the final boss fight, which there isn't really much to talk about with the final boss fight of King Dice itself. There is a risky strat you can go for, which is if you have HP to spare, you can do an EX, drop down, and immediately do another EX because you touched the ground while jumping back up to parry onto the cards again. But since I had no HP in this clip, I did not go for it, and it is a much more advanced trick as it involves taking damage at the final phase. But yeah, nothing too much to talk about with King Dice itself. Alright, so at the tail end of it all, we have the devil himself. The devil, there isn't much really to discuss about him. It's basically just going through the same things as usual, going through the boss fight and all that stuff. Obviously, you want to hit no when he asks you if you want to join his team, otherwise your run will be really screwed up on time. Some people do it accidentally, but you shouldn't have too much of an issue. And then you basically just want to play this as if it was if it was the devil boss fight normally, except you're doing it like twice as fast because of weapon swap. So I'm going to use this time to talk about a couple things. Mainly, if you haven't already and you are watching this video, consider joining the Cuphead speedrun Discord. We have a Discord set up where most, if not all, of the top runners are in there. So if you need any questions or any help after watching this video, feel free to ask them. There's also some other guides for all bosses on current patch, whether it is on regular or simple. So those are 2 other tutorials I made. I also made one to set up Livesplit, so that's another one you can look at. So yeah, pretty simple. I also speedrun Cuphead and live stream it, so you can ask questions to me live if you track me down on my stream. But yeah, as you can see, the devil is done at this point. Your live split will just automatically tell you the run is done. And yeah, congratulations. If you've made it this far, you now have everything you need to basically be set up for a deathless and pretty decent first run through. Obviously, this isn't going to be a tutorial to make you a world record holder, but it is everything you basically need to be set up for your first speedrun. So yeah, good luck and have fun.